Hi, my name's Amy Forrester and I am Director of Behaviour at Cockermouth School. I'm also a behaviour columnist for the TES and my background in school is both in pastoral care and in behaviour. And what I'm talking to you about this morning is very much informed by that and about how we best use our pastoral skills to really demonstrate how we care about students. And the way that our culture really reflects the things that we care about and the things that we want our students to go on and achieve. So I wanted to start with this, which is what I believe is a very fundamental way of showing how we care about young people. And that comes down to, for me, the high expectations that we have of them. So every child in every single school across our country deserves to have somebody in their life that really pushes them to achieve their best. That it should be the right of every child to go to a school that really will believe that, but also hold them account, hold them to account for that, because it's something that's not straightforward, yet it's something that people talk about a lot. It's probably very rare that you've ever met a teacher who says, oh no, actually I've got low expectations of a child. You're not going to see that. But thinking about what those expectations are and how we live and breathe them through our everyday interactions, that for me is really fundamentally about how we care about young people and how we show that we've got their best interests at heart. So underpinning that is the idea for me that if we lower those expectations and we begin to let students off for things, or we hold them to different standards to other people, or if we say something like, oh, they're having a really hard time at the moment, or, you know, what do you expect with a kid like that? That is one of the fundamentally most uncaring things that you can say. And it's a funny thing, because it can feel a little bit like that is something that's kind to say, do you know what, they're having a really difficult time, we need to lower our expectations. But that isn't how we care about young people. If we let them off, we let them down, and we're essentially saying that we don't think that they can meet those expectations. And there's no greater insult than saying you're not worth our expectations. So I think we need to think about how we live and breathe that in schools, and the way that we really enforce our expectations as a long-term act of kindness. And the very best gift that we can give all of our students in school is to make sure that they have disruption-free learning, that they're able to learn, they're able to do so in a safe environment, they're able to feel secure. All of those things fundamentally is how we best care about young people. So I want to talk a little bit about how we combine all of this in terms of pastoral care and the things that we can do. So I want us to think about two children. I'm going to start with child A, and I'm sure there will be things on here that you can identify with, or certainly think of students who might sound really similar to you. So if we think about child A, so they have a background with a lot of childhood trauma. They've witnessed domestic violence, they've had exposure to drugs in the home, both seeing and using. They have shown challenging behaviour across the school, across lessons, and the family are really unsupportive of the school and really difficult to work with. And I'm sure there's a lot of you who can think, yeah, I can picture that child perfectly, that the one I know from my school, or the one from my things that I've done in the past. So if we think about what child A's day might look like in school, you're potentially looking at a situation where they're in detention every day, they're not handing in homeworks, but teachers kind of go, oh well, what do you expect? She's got an awful background, like we can't expect her to get that homework in. She might be isolated, especially if other students find her really negative or difficult to deal with, or they're scared of her. There's lots of things that could be going on there. There'll be academic difficulties, so she goes from lesson to lesson feeling like she's behind, she's stupid, she's thick, and essentially she's kind of best summarised by thinking, well, you know, her parents aren't really that bothered. So as long as she keeps her head down, why should she be bothered? And I'm sure you can all think of somebody where that might have been the dialogue that you've had around that child. And for me, that fundamentally is one of the most uncaring ways that we can live and develop a pastoral system. And I want to think about that concept a little bit here. So I think it's really important to remember that nobody ever goes to work in our job to let children down. It's just not what we're about as a profession. Like, we do this because we never want to let them down, not because we do want to. But you will hear things like this in schools being said, and you shouldn't, but you do. Things like, she doesn't get any help at home, so I don't push her with the homework. Like, that's not fair. She has to do it on her own. There's nobody there to help her. Or parents will kick off if I put her in detention, so I'll just ignore that behaviour. I can't be bothered with that conflict. Or like, I'll just make the work easy for her so she can do it. And those all come from a good place. They come from a place of thinking that you're helping that child. But when we pick them apart and we look at them, they're actually quite problematic. So let me exemplify that with child B. Okay, so child B is the same child. She's got exactly the same background. In fact, she is child A. Let's look at what her day could look like in a school that doesn't lower their expectations for her, but instead scaffolds support around her in order to show that they really care about her learning and her progress. So her day starts, she sees her form tutor every morning, and they are really supportive, really positive with her, really welcoming, set her up for the day. She goes to lessons where she gets to the same end point as other students, so the learning's the same, the pathway's a little bit different. She's not given easier work, she's given work that helps her achieve what everyone else achieves, just maybe in a different way. Content in lessons is adapted to her reading levels. Staff are aware that academically that she struggles because she's got a lower than chronological age reading age, and they adapt that. They make sure she can access it and that she can read what she's being given. And staff ultimately use the same sanctions and rewards on her as anyone else. And she knows that they do that because they care about her. They hold her to account and say, no, you're in control of your behaviour. You make choices about how you behave. You're capable of behaving to a higher standard than you currently are. And they do that with kindness and coming from the right place, coming from the heart, because otherwise they're saying to her, we don't think you can do it. And that's worse. And she knows that. She knows that there's people fighting her corner in that school that believe in her, that actually believe that she can do this. And therefore her day is better. So thinking about that, it's really important that schools are reflective on that and think about those kind of cultures and those narratives that might build, and about how we challenge those in professional but polite ways. Like I said, nobody ever comes into school to do a bad job. Nobody gets up in the morning and goes, do you know what, I'm going to go and, ruin a few kids' days. That isn't what we're about as a profession. But there is this kind of pervasive message that sometimes infiltrates through schools and changes the way that we view things, and makes us, sort of tricks us into believing that lowering expectations is a kindness. And we have to be really alert to that. And as schools and school leaders, we need to make sure that we are auditing for that, and that we challenge that, and that we hold ourselves to a higher account to say, do we expect the same of every child? Now, I wanted to focus on this just a little bit in terms of the high expectations and sanctions, and how that works in schools as an act of care towards young people. So in Tom Bennett's book, Running the Room, he uses this really interesting point. So he says, if there are no consequences for a student's actions, then we teach them that their actions don't matter, that what they do doesn't matter. No belief could be more harmful. We need students to think that what they do does matter, and that they matter by default. They need to see and hear us reacting to their behaviour, good or bad. And he's right. That is how we really care about young people. We hold them to the same standards as everyone else. because otherwise we are saying that what they do doesn't matter, and it should matter. Every child deserves to matter, and they deserve us to notice and to react and to respond, because if we don't, we're invalidating them. We're saying you don't matter, and what could be more harmful than that in a school? So the my final points are sort of these three things for schools and for pastoral leaders, for other school leaders. We have a collective responsibility to hold ourselves to account for the way that we do this and the way that we implement those high expectations and how those are lived in our school day-to-day experiences. We also have a duty to our young people to hold the line, to not lower expectations because of certain children's, context. We make sure absolutely that there is the right support in place, that there is the right scaffolding, that their needs are being met. But we hold the line because we know it's the right thing to do, even when it's not the easy thing to do. And finally, that we do everything that we do, but with compassion. So we remember why we're doing this, because we care about those young people that are in our schools. We care about making a really important difference to their lives. We care about them leaving our schools as a better person than when they joined. That's, yes, the mark of a good school is how we change lives through learning, but it's also about how we holistically develop that child as well. So finally, if you're interested in the kind of things I've been talking about today, I am going to do a little book plug here. So my book, The Complete Guide to Pastoral Leadership, is out shortly / imminently. So if you would like to find out a little bit more, then please do have a look at that. It's available on Amazon, Waterstones, and through John Catt. Thank you.